All right, so get ready, because today we are going deep on something that's been causing some serious waves in the Escape from Tarkov community. It's a question that honestly cuts to the core of what Tarkov is all about. Zombies. Should they be a thing, or are they better left out?
Yeah, it's interesting because this isn't just like, oh, add another enemy type. This is a debate about like what Tarkov is, like its identity, what it is now, what players want it to be in the future. And we're going to be diving into a Reddit thread where people are really, really passionately sharing their thoughts.
Yeah, so for anyone who might not be super familiar with Tarkov, it's a game that's known for being hardcore, realistic, difficult, and it's set in this bleak post-apocalyptic world. So some people might say, not really the best place for zombies, right?
Right. And the whole point of the game is about scavenging, surviving these crazy firefights, and getting out with whatever loot you can find. So throwing zombies into that, it definitely changes things up a bit. And the recent Halloween event, which, surprise, surprise, had zombies, it kind of poured gasoline on this whole debate.
Oh yeah, that event really got people talking. Some players loved the chaos, but others felt like it just showed how limited the game is technically. It seems like the community is pretty split on it.
Oh yeah, they are. And a lot of that division comes from arguments against a permanent zombie mode. The Reddit thread is just full of people complaining about how badly the game ran during the Halloween event. I mean, lag, frame rate drops, zombies teleporting through walls. Not exactly what you want when Tarkov is all about being immersive and tactical, right?
Yeah, ouch. So were these zombies just kind of wandering around aimlessly, or was there more to it? Did the event have any specific gameplay things that people really liked or hated?
Well, there's one type of zombie that really ticked people off, the infamous pistol zombies. Players were saying that these pistol-wielding zombies were just too accurate, like way too accurate. So it made fighting them frustrating and just felt unfair,
Hold on, frustrating because they were too accurate. That's kind of weird, right? Because Tarkov is all about realism.
Yeah, you'd think so. But this actually brings up a really important point. It's about this disconnect between how zombies are supposed to act in a game like Tarkov and what players actually experienced. Tarkov is proud of its realistic gunplay, its tactical combat. So players expect enemies, even the undead ones, to act somewhat predictably, But these pistol zombies, they were more like aimbots than actual threats. It just ruined the immersion and that sense of fairness that Tarkov players really value.
Ah, I see. So it's not just about zombies being in the game, it's about how they're added and if they fit into how the game is played. Makes sense. But what about the technical stuff? The Reddit thread mentioned a lot of problems with how the game ran.
Yeah, and this is connected to another big worry. The limitations of the Unity engine, which is what Tarkov uses. A lot of players are saying that Unity just isn't built to handle tons of enemies, especially in a game as demanding as Tarkov. So adding a whole zombie mode could really overload the engine and probably cause even more performance issues.
Now that you mention it, I remember reading comments about how the game already struggles to run smoothly even without zombies. So yeah, adding a whole new enemy type could definitely make things worse.
Exactly. And that leads to a bigger concern within the community, that a separate zombie mode would take away time and resources from making the core game better.
So it's about priorities then. Players are worried that zombies might become the main focus when they'd rather see the developers polish what's already there.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget that Tarkov already has arena mode, which some players feel has already split the player base. Adding another big game mode might just divide the community even more.
So we have performance worries, concerns about resources being spread too thin, and then the possibility of splitting the player base even more. It sounds like a lot of players are seeing some red flags, but weren't there people in that Reddit thread who actually wanted a zombie mode? What were their arguments?
Oh, definitely. Plenty of players saw the potential for zombies in Tarkov, and they have some good points. First, Tarkov's atmosphere is already super tense, all about survival, and that fits perfectly with zombies. Imagine sneaking through interchange, knowing that a horde of hungry undead could be around any corner.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that would be appealing. Definitely adds another level of stress to a game that's already pretty stressful. But didn't some players have ideas for how to add zombies in a way that might solve some of the concerns we've been talking about?
Yes, and some of these ideas are pretty clever. One user, Ronald Railgun, suggested adding zombies in a smaller way, like maybe having them only on certain maps or as part of tasks you get from traders. That way they could add something new without overloading the game engine or shifting the focus away from the main gameplay.
A more subtle approach. I like it. It's like getting the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
Get the zombie element without going overboard. But what about the performance issues and the strain on the Unity engine? Did anyone address that?
Oh yeah, they did. And this is where things get really interesting. One user, Pruneface, suggested that Battlestate Games could make like special maps just for zombie encounters. And these maps could be built to handle lots of zombies without making the game run poorly. It might even solve some of those technical issues. They even suggested a horde mode, like round-based, where players could team up and try to survive against waves of zombies that get tougher and tougher.
So kind of like a separate zombie experience that doesn't mess with the main Tarkov gameplay. I can see that being a good option for people who want that zombie action but don't want the core game to change.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, right? And talking about balance, another user, DeoxySpeedform, had a really interesting idea. A separate zombie mode where players could donate gear from their stash to equip AI soldiers who are fighting the undead.
Whoa, wait a minute, that's actually pretty smart. So instead of playing as your character in the zombie mode, you're basically giving your gear to these AI soldiers. It's like you're fighting the zombie apocalypse indirectly, without risking all your good loot on your main character.
Right. It's a cool idea that lets players experience the zombie mode without messing with the main Tarkov experience. Plus, it creates this cool link where how well you do in the main game can affect what happens in the zombie mode.
I like that a lot. It's like you're sending supplies to a bunch of survivors who are fighting somewhere else in the world. You want them to succeed, but you're not actually putting yourself in danger.
Yeah, exactly. And there were even more ideas in that Reddit thread. Some players thought about adding zombies to the arena mode. Imagine. Close quarters combat, not many resources, and hordes of zombies coming at you from everywhere.
Oh man, that sounds intense. It's like a gladiator arena, but with zombies instead of lions.
Yeah.
And since arena is already a separate mode, it wouldn't split the players up even more.
Exactly. It's a smart way to use what's already there and make the arena experience even more terrifying.
So it seems like there are lots of creative ways to add zombies to Tarkov without completely changing the game. But at the end of the day, it's up to Battlestate Games, the developers.
Oh yeah, for sure. And they have a tough choice to make. They have to consider the good things about a zombie mode, like more players, attracting new players, and trying new gameplay. But they also have to think about the risks, like making core players mad, technical problems, and using up resources.
It's a classic problem, isn't it? Trying to make everyone happy while staying true to what the game is supposed to be. And honestly, this goes beyond just Escape from Tarkov. It's a trend we're seeing in a lot of games. Developers are always trying to find that balance between adding new stuff and keeping players happy with what they expect.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's a balancing act that every game developer has to deal with. And for Tarkov, a game with such a dedicated and passionate community, it's even more important.
Because in the end, it's all about the player's experience, right?
Yeah.
Any new feature, no matter how cool or new, has to make the game better and make sense to the players.
And in a game like Tarkov, where realism, tension, and tactical combat are so important, adding something like zombies has to be done very carefully.
So what does all this mean for you, the listener, the Tarkov player, who's waiting to see what happens next? This whole debate is a chance for you to think about what you want from Tarkov.
Yeah, what kind of Tarkov experience are you looking for? Are you excited about the chaos and new stuff that zombies could bring? Or do you want the developers to focus on making the core gameplay even better, keeping that realism and tension that made you love Tarkov in the first place?
Big questions, especially for a game as complex and challenging as Tarkov. But that's what makes this whole discussion so interesting, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it really makes you think about the games you love, and how new things can change the whole experience. And it's clear that the Tarkov community, they really care about what happens to their game. They're not just playing it, they're talking about it, coming up with solutions, sharing their ideas for what it could be.
Yeah, it just shows you how powerful a passionate gaming community can be. These players aren't just complaining, they're actually contributing to a bigger conversation that could really shape the game. And that's pretty amazing. Totally. It's like a giant brainstorming session with thousands of players putting their heads together. And sure, not every idea will be in the game, but you can tell that Battlestate Games is paying attention and taking their feedback seriously.
And that brings us to our final thought, something we want you to think about as we wrap up this deep dive into the whole zombie thing.
So imagine just for a second that you're sitting with Nikita Buynov, the guy who created Escape from Tarkov. You've got his attention, and he actually wants to hear what you think about zombies in Tarkov.
What would you tell him? Would you push for a full-on zombie mode with its own story, maps, and gameplay? Or would you suggest something more subtle, adding zombies to the existing world in a way that makes it more tense and realistic without taking away from the core game?
Maybe you'd go for a compromise, something like those special maps or the AI soldier idea we talked about. There's so many possibilities. But ultimately, it's up to you.
So what's your vision? How would you bring zombies into Escape from Tarkov? How would you balance the fun, the fear, and what's actually possible to make an experience that you and the rest of the Tarkov community would love?
We want to hear from you. Share your ideas, what you hope for, what you're worried about, and your best zombie killing strategies. Because the future of Tarkov, zombies or not, is something we're all a part of. Until next time, stay safe in those raids, keep your head on a swivel, and remember, even in Tarkov, the dead can surprise you